Hello, everyone. We want to also warmly welcome you to our program today about education in a changing Europe.
Hi from my side as well. My name is Ada, and here is Sofia Lehtovaara, and we are representing the student unions of University of Turku and Åbo Academy University.
Yes, and today we're also joined by our wonderful panelists. We have Vice Principal of the University of Turku, Maija Peltola, and Executive Board Member of the National Union of University Students in Finland, Samuli Leppämäki. We also have the member of European Parliament and former Minister of Education, Li Andersson.
Today's program is about sustainable education in Europe. How we can provide high quality and sustainable education while reducing inequality. We'll start the discussion with opening speeches. The perspectives for the speeches have been given to the speakers in advance. Maija, you can start. What does sustainable education mean to you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is an interesting question and a very versatile one as well. But from the perspective of the university or universities or the University of Turku in particular, sustainable education has its basis and its roots in high quality research. This ensures high quality and renewal through time. So in a way, we have a system built in our whole university organization, which ensures, in a sense, sustainability also. But sustainability does have several layers, obviously. It may also come to very concrete issues related to substance matters taught at the university. And from that perspective, it also has a systemic value. In a way, this entails developing curricula so as that they contain either real courses developed for this purpose, but also just rebuilding thinking and making sure that the next generation is aware of the responsibility and the sort of load that we have and the reason that we need the future people to develop us further. But in addition to curricula building and such sort of administrative tools, we also have the substance matters in courses which come close to biodiversity, biosustainability, or social diversity and social sustainability, which are issues which often seem that they are lying sort of somewhere in the background, but they can also be brought up into the light. And this is something that we are currently doing in our curriculum development. From organization perspective, it comes all to responsible science and responsible leadership. This means that we have to struggle at all times to ensure that we have equal opportunities for people, irrespective of their background, to enter our community. And in a way, it also entails that we need to embrace diversity in all its senses and all its forms. And this is something that needs to be done explicitly in order to make it also so that everyone sees it. And in this work, we need to constantly adjust and change and readjust our systems, and that is something that we do. Currently at the University of Turku, we are working hard on developing different kinds of ways in which to ensure that everyone is welcome to our community and that people with different kinds of cultural and linguistics or social and whatever backgrounds feel that they are part of us and they feel welcome. And it's also very significant to ensure that also in the future people can enter us and be sort of the pathway is done for them and there are no hidden or vivid obstacles anywhere. In addition, it's not only entering the university, but in a way exiting is as important. And for this we are also struggling and making a great effort at our university in the sense that we are trying to build systems which help people to find a community and a place to work and a kind of a family community also outside our walls and our ceilings. This means that we need to take great outreaches in order to find places where people can meet and where they can find their own place in the world after their studies. And this, to me, seems to be one of the key sustainability systems that we need to develop currently. In a way, for the University of Turku, taking responsibility for building resilient people, resilient young adults, is in the heart of everything. This can be done in many ways, and we invite everyone to join us in finding new paths to this end. Thank you.
Thank you, Maija. And Samuli, what does it mean to you then?
Of course. I was thinking about this question more from the viewpoint of accessibility, because I think that accessibility and sustainability of education inherently go hand in hand in Finland. For me personally, sustainability of education means privilege first and foremost, because I have the privilege in Finland to have a pathway to increasing one's knowledge, awareness and skills completely free. No matter people's background, area of living or socioeconomic status, we all have free education in Finland from middle school to university. I come from a small town in Salo, a town not that far from here, and when I finished high school and wanted to increase my knowledge of technology, I had the option to come here to Turku and take the train every day, even though my family had no background in higher education, and I had to rely on 0 cents from their support. So I had the choice. And now, like from the European standpoint, many youth in Europe can only dream of these kinds of possibilities. And these kinds of possibilities we may perhaps take as granted, because it's kind of essential to building our history with knowing about sustainability and recognizing it from an early point. And even in Finland, since we have tuition fees for students that come from outside EUEA that are now cost covering, they have to rely on family support and salary to even have a chance to build a future in Finland. So they don't have the same choice that people like me have. And I think the overriding element that makes Finnish education sustainable is that it's accessible and that it's free. And even then, we are not immune to the fact that there are marginalized groups that are underrepresented in higher education. So I can only imagine how big of a phenomenon that would be if we had no free education. In terms of the sustainability goals of the European Union, they are very close to us at the National Union of University Students in Finland, because we as an organization were founded upon a strong presence in development cooperation and international solidarity. And during the 30 years that we've been part of the EU, our membership has seen undeniable benefits from the membership, like the increases in mobility through Erasmus, the internationalization of universities and research, and progress through the Bologna process, which has made degrees more comparable across borders. So these are all, I see, enhance sustainability of education of the continent overall. And these developments all have a goal in common, which is sharing knowledge across the continent and making the information more accessible for all. And I do think that it's essential that in all of these developments also the student movement has been an active participant. When I'm thinking about the sustainability goals of the EU that are quite ambitious, and there are vast initiatives that need to be met, challenges that we need to find innovations for, I cannot think but that the role of education is central in that, because changing mindsets, skills, and even attitudes of people, it happens throughout education from the primary level to the university level, and that provides us with the skills and with the networks to come up and brainstorm the options with each other. I don't think it's not just about transferring knowledge, but also empowering citizens to be active participants in the transition from early on. And for us at SYL, we do believe that central ways where the EU can support these kinds of sustainable initiatives is to support, of course, student mobility and cooperation between academic institutions and businesses, but also keeping the autonomy and the quality of national education systems safeguarded, because the system in Finland is fairly accessible, and that's not a reality everywhere in Europe. And European level guidelines for increased cooperation and recognition of degrees are very welcome, as long as they don't compromise the things that make our academic framework accessible, which is free and high quality education that's available for all, regardless of their ethnic or socioeconomic background. And we do believe that the decision making of education policy should remain under the principle of subsidiarity, because when the decisions are close to member states, they are close to universities, and therefore they are closer to the students. But as a student movement, we are generally pro-EU. It's just that we want a union that works not just for us, but with us.
Thank you, Samuli. And how about Lee? What do you think?
Well, thank you very much. When I got the topic about sustainable education, I of course started to think about the world and everything going on in the world. As you all know, Europe at the moment is facing a wide range of challenges, challenges that also touch upon the most fundamental aspects of all of our lives. Ensuring human well-being and security, safeguarding the habitability and future of our planet, so no small challenges. And it's clear that without either of these, there can be no future, let alone no sustainable future. So when I think about all of these developments, I think it's pretty clear that education is more important than ever at the moment. Climate change, the technological revolution in artificial intelligence, deepening social inequalities, shifting global power dynamics, all of these demand that we are ready also to kind of rethink our societal systems, and also about what we prioritize so that we are able to respond to these changes. And I think education is so important because it's not only a tool to adapt to things that go on, but it's also a way for us to affect what is going on and to reshape our societies and our ways of thinking. As you probably know, the EU Commission has launched a new initiative called the Union of Skills, which aims to create high quality, inclusive and adaptable education, and also training and skill systems to overcome skill shortages and boost Europe's competitiveness. Although member states are responsible for educational policy, this is the way to which EU wants to play a supporting role in education policies and also promote best practices and common goals. And I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to discuss whether this skills is a good word when we want to talk about educational policy or not. Either way, at least my ambition and my hope is that we will kind of force education to the top of the political agenda. I always say that the aim should be not to have the education policy people talk about education, but to get the prime ministers, the heads of state, to really dive into educational policy. Because when we look at the challenges and the problems that they are trying to solve, they are all linked to this topic. The Draghi report, for example, talked about how 77% of European companies report that newly hired employees lack essential skills. And at the same time, the European labour force is estimated to decline by 35 million people by 2050. So we certainly need more highly skilled workers, but we also need all kinds of people to do all kinds of work, and all kinds of people also to find their own place in our societies. So to be prepared for the future, we need opportunities, of course, for lifelong learning, also for reskilling and upskilling, but even more importantly, we need to cultivate creativity, problem solving, and different type of social skills. Once again, coming back to whether this is a good word or not. But qualities that are not just connected to what happens in the labor market or what certain companies need, but really fundamental skills needed for us to act as members of our societies and for us to develop our societies together. So I think we need to expand education at every level. We need stronger support for those who need it. We need to invest in inclusiveness, which is key actually to solving many of the issues regarding equality and accessibility. And Europe must take educational policy much more seriously than it has so far. I will stop there.
Thank you. And thank you for your input here. We'll move on to the panel discussion. And as a side note, we are limiting the time to about 1 minute per question so that everyone has space to speak. And if you have any comments regarding anything said, then you have 30 seconds approximately. We're not very strict with this. We're trying to be, though. But so the first topic today is quality of education.
So, as of today, the European Union does not specifically regulate higher education in the member states. However, there are several EU-level legal instruments and frameworks that influence higher education across Europe. An example of this is the Bologna process, which is an intergovernmental initiative aiming to harmonize higher education systems. To reach a common ground, should the EU steer higher education policies in the member states, or should they at all? Will you do?
Okay,
I'm sorry.
So it depends on what you mean. I am not in favor for transferring competences if we talk about that kind of steering. I don't think the EU should be very involved in the kind of content or curricula of our education systems. But we do need to understand, I mean, EU should guide through target setting, yes. Binding target setting, if possible, in terms of financing, for example. And we should also acknowledge the role that, for example, financial rules within the EU do have for our educational policies. So if I would start somewhere, I would start with how education and research is treated in the financial framework of the European Union to strengthen the role of educational investment. And in addition to this, we also need exchange on research. One of the most interesting panels I participated in as a minister was a panel actually on what we do know in terms of what policies work to increase equality in education. So on educational policy, what we can learn from each other to reach goals that we all share. That was maybe a minute.
Yeah, I think the key is like learning from each other and enhancing the cooperation between the different academic systems in Europe that the EU institutions can provide frameworks for. For example, through the Bologna process, the progress has been like self-evident that we have gotten better at recognizing the degrees with each other, and the area can enlarge, and the European education area can provide guidelines and like suggestions that then the national authorities can like take further. But it is like important with education policy to remember that as long as the decision making is done as much in the member states as possible, it also remains closer to the students as possible. And we have like stuff in Finland that we are used to, and our education framework has been built upon. Like for the example, we have our own preferred way of quality assurance, which is done through external auditing, and that's not a practice that everywhere in Europe is used. So there is the danger that if EU just starts to heavily standardize things and things need to be negotiated among the member states, that the actual accessibility of education across the continent will actually decrease from what it is used to in the Nordics. But it's great that there are like shared goals to enhance cooperation. But it is that EU's mandate in these matters is fairly limited. And from a student-centered viewpoint, we have been satisfied with keeping the decision-making closer to students.
Yeah, thank you. This is not an easy question at all, but from the point of view of the university, I think it looks like a case where sustainability requires us to both harmonize and also to not harmonize. And in a way, it sounds very contradictory, but what I try to say by this is that if we talk about diversity as a value that we consider to be at the heart of sustainable actions, then embracing diversity is also important. But I have to say that I was being a bit propagandist here. I brought this little notebook. It's very small here, but it's from the Easy to You Alliance, which is one great example of how we can collaborate with other universities in Europe within the framework of the European community. And to me, at least, and I suppose from many students' points of view, this has opened the door to international collaboration and discussions which don't care about borders or ethnicity, but instead people. And for this, I'm all for. So that irrespective of if we are different and decisions are made in each country close to the people who are involved in that, that's really crucial. But at the same time, then we need these alliances and whatnots in order to find each other.
Thank you for your points. As a following question, I want to ask that could there be any downsides to the European Union implementing some sort of standardized level of higher education?
Well, one downside is that with the potential one is the financing part, because the university alliances right now are like a positive step towards like international cooperation between the academic institutions, but they have not been marked with specific funding channels. They have just been temporarily moved to the Erasmus, which means that they are sharing the money with the degree mobility periods. So it's like taking away from another important thing. So in terms of the future of the university alliances, we are still learning a lot and seeing how they form. And it's good that students are like present in all levels of decision making. But we'll have to see what kind of standardizing is going to be. For example, we still don't know much about the European degree initiative. We don't know about the European university, how that's gonna play out. And in a lot of these systems, the Finnish system already has like stuff that kind of does the same goal within our framework. So there is the question of how interoperable these kinds of things will be.
Yeah. From the university perspective, it seems sometimes that quality issues, of course, they are often discussed, but in a way, science has this way of ensuring quality, because if we keep up with the ideal that a research-based education is something that we strive towards, then in that case, there are no big problems with quality of education, because it just turns out so that all new stuff is brought to students immediately after discovery. And that, in a way, ensures the quality of education in the grassroots level. But certainly the framework in which these little types of skills and knowledge and whatever they are put, that is something different. And that is something that is not very... I don't see much problem there either, in the sense that irrespective of the system, as long as the bricks are intact and the quality of each brick is solid, then that's not a big problem for educational quality.
Yeah, I guess the probable downside could be this: if there is unclarity in terms of how the quality of the actual degree in different countries is comparable with each other. So, but there's been a lot of processes also in Europe. I mean, the Bologna process in itself aimed at kind of reducing that type of uncertainty. I think one interesting part with the Union of Skills initiative is that they are now talking about having this Bologna process for vocational education. So to increase the possibility to compare and recognize degrees done on vocational educational level. And there you will certainly also have a big discussion about how comparable the education is in the different countries, because you have even bigger differences on vocational level than you have in the higher educational systems.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You already mentioned here internationalization and mobility. And I mean, several universities in Finland are now implementing these new strategies to increase the number of international students to enroll at their universities, which can be partly interpreted as a way to increase the mobility of people internationally and in the European Union. Mobility is also, as you mentioned, encouraged in the university alliances. I mean, could the quality of education be weakened in an increase, like if we increase it a lot more within Europe? Do you think? What do you think, Maija? You can continue.
It's very difficult to see there a big problem again, since at least to me, in each classroom, diversity is also always a bonus for quality, because bringing together different kinds of points of view, deriving either from your background as a country of origin or as your cultural background here in Turku area, it's always a plus for higher education quality. And to me, it seems that this may be something wild in a way, but I occasionally think about what we are talking about when we are talking about internationalization at the university level. Is it that we need people from different places to come over here? Of course, mobility is important. But how about people who are from different kinds of backgrounds and cultural heritages close to us? Enabling them to bring their views to discussion at the university classrooms might be worthwhile giving a boost also. We all know about the problems how higher education is not as accessible to all people, even living in this area. Then in a way, internationalization, that's a really difficult word,
it's a mouthful.
There are a lot of syllables and I don't know where to put the stress, even though I'm a phonetician by birth. But in any case, it's always significant to look at international collaboration and internationalization from what it is. It's about bringing people together. And this can be done here domestically and through Europe and globally. And all need to be considered.
Yeah, I have to agree that I don't see much of a realistic problem with the quality being decreased because internationalization is being increased. First of all, I do not count international students in Finland doing degrees as mobility because they are part of our membership and an increasing amount of that. Yeah. Because for them, the interest is more on like trying to build a future and a career in Finland, and then the exchange students have a fairly different set of needs and plans. Mobility is a priority for us, and the mobility terms have been now decreasing since the first cuts to education in 2016 and then plundering even stronger in the pandemic, and they've never increased back in Finland. And of course, like student income situations have definitely been a part of that phenomenon that exchanges aren't as attractive anymore financially or timetable-wise because students have to graduate faster and be working and have less money to spend on living. But for our membership base that still does go on the exchanges and we encourage them to go on exchanges, it is not like a phenomenon that they would choose mobility options based on where there are easiest courses to pick. So that's why I don't think that there is a danger of quality being reduced, because most people going on mobility periods are doing it out of academic, genuine curiosity of believing that there is something in the target country and their education that can supplement their already academic career plans.
Yeah, I agree. I tried to think before this panel that what could be the mechanism through which the quality of education. I mean, sometimes you can have cases where mobility is not handled very well when it comes to language lessons, for example, or how inclusive the society is, or how well we are able to employ, for example, people who have decided to stay in Finland after moving here and so on. So there are those kinds of cases, but that doesn't affect the actual quality of education. So I'm going to go back to the union of skills points because I think this is the best place to do it. I think there is actually a bigger risk for the quality of education because there's been a lot of criticism about the fact that the education word has disappeared, talking about skills. And also when you look at the kind of institutional structures that have been made by the Commission in terms of union of skills, you have not had educational providers represented there. And the risk there, I think, if we if the educational policy turns into a skills agenda, is exactly this: that who is in charge of providing skills? So all of a sudden, you're actually talking about a much broader spectrum of education providers than the ones who are part of the kind of formal educational system, and also how you define an actual skill if it is not linked to degrees or parts of degrees in any way. I think there you can see a bigger risk actually of a trend or a development that might affect the actual quality when we talk about education. If there is this kind of loosening up of definitions without having kind of a clear debate about what we are talking about in what instance.
Thank you. You know, we're getting short on time already, but I think we'll move on to the third question so we have enough time. But we're moving on to the next theme, which will be inequality within the education systems in Europe. And I think we all mentioned already, or you all mentioned, that we've come a long way in equality, both in Europe and in Finland. But you know, there's always room for improvement, for sure. Equality should be a cornerstone of education and something to continuously keep working towards. But in Finland, you mentioned already free education. We've been really proud about that for a long time. But I mean, most countries in Europe, education isn't free in or higher education. What do you think would happen if all member states would go towards tuition fees? Someone?
It would be horrible. It would ruin the good progress that we are constantly doing. In Finland's case, it would ruin a decades-long history and the framework and the pillars upon which our education system has been built upon. Education paths wouldn't be as feasible for as many groups or backgrounds. Motivation of society to continue gaining knowledge and international cooperation would all hinder. Objective of rise of education, which is in Finland an objective, and also in the Draghi report in the European level, our amount of higher educated people is now 40%. In the OECD medium, it's 47%. So we are already getting not very good progress in that, and we have free education. So if we had tuition fees, it would be making the direction reverse. And yeah, there's so many problems that I don't even feel like listing all of them.
Yeah. And in addition to this, you would have young people who are even more indebted than now. I mean, we should remember that the level of debt when you graduate already for Finnish students has gone up because of the cuts in the social security for students. So if you, in addition to this, would have tuition fees, it would double or triple or even more like the amount of debt I guess most students would have when they kind of start their working life. And that, of course, have huge socioeconomic consequences because that would mean you would decrease the kind of share of young people who are able to take that kind of financial risk, because of course then your family background affects it even more and so on. So I have had 100 debates about this with some economists that say that, you know, always investment in higher education, it's so beneficial for you, that it's unfair, that it's free of charge and so on. But they usually never take into account the people who do not apply for higher education, who never get into that system, that you would kind of increase the number of people who never even try to enter because they don't have the financial opportunities to do it.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, for starters, if there were tuition fees in the 90s, I would not be here. And that's one thing. I don't mean to say that I come from a very poor family, but what I mean to say is that I would never have sort of felt comfortable asking for help from my parents to pay for tuition fees, because it's not something that you do if there's other siblings involved who didn't do it. And in a way, that's scary. I love being here. I love doing science and educational policy. But from a more broader sense, I think that it's also the discussion sometimes goes along with quality in the way that if students were paying clients, that would boost up education quality, because then we would really do it the best we can. And that discussion is always entertaining, at least. But in a way, in this kind of view, it's sometimes neglected that at the moment, if we turned into students into clients, paying clients, then that would mean that they would no longer be equal members of the community, the scientific community. And that's a delicate balance. Either you're outside the community as a paying customer, or then you are a member of the equal member of the quality, the community. And you can't have it both ways, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of students would probably rethink even studying the first place, as you already mentioned. It's true. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, despite efforts to harmonize and improve higher education in Europe, access to quality education is still not equal for everyone. So, like socioeconomic background, geography, and personal circumstances can all limit opportunities, even in countries with strong education systems. To build a more inclusive European education area, we need to address these barriers and ensure that no one is left behind. So, how can we move closer to ensuring that everyone has equal access to quality education, regardless of their socioeconomic background?
Well, I mean, this is a topic where you need to talk about the whole of the educational system, because you cannot change differences that have already existed when you talk about higher education. So you really need to start from early childhood education and care. And I think that some of the key issues, I mean, there's a lot of research on what kind of factors increase equality within the educational system and what kind of factors decrease equality. And I think the more you have structures in your educational systems that mean early choices, and also kind of this with different structures for different types of students in your educational system, the more inequality you will also have. I mean, this is something that has been discussed in Finland as well. We have one common primary education system for all. That's a big favor for us if you compare it to countries who have privatized systems on top of that. But then we also have structures nowadays, quite a lot of them in our primary education system. It also means that there is this choice or selection is the right word in English, of students in a way that's not beneficial for equality. Inclusivity is another topic that's very important. So students with needs for special educational support, how well we do apply the principle of inclusiveness in our educational systems. We know that we are trying now to reform the system for inclusion in Finland to make it work better. If you look at it from a European perspective, Finland is seen as one of the best countries, maybe after Portugal, in inclusive education. So you also have countries in Europe where you have very segregated educational systems in ways that are in no way good for equality and equal access. And then I think we should also talk about vocational education, because increasing equal access to higher education, especially in countries such as Finland, is also very much based on how well we do in our vocational education system, where we absolutely need to make sure that we have enough high-quality teaching in the general subjects that are crucial for your ability then to be able to apply to higher education, and that we also have a sufficient system of educational support within the vocational education system, which is actually, once again, an example of selection, what we have after the primary education system. So every time there is this kind of element of selection, you also need to be quite careful to then make sure that it doesn't then later on show as increased inequality.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a complex issue, and I don't think we still know even what are the best options to tackle on like Finnish and European level. But we do recognize the goal, which is that in order to increase the education level, we need more of those people who would now be excluded from the whole system, from any basis, for socioeconomic, ethnic, any kind of background. And in order to increase that, we try out different things. My organization suggests different things, pilots, inquiries, tailored paths and support measures to specific underrepresented groups, such as those with local language being their second language, or from those who come from a family of immigrant background. And then that's a reality, that the base of students is constantly diversifying, and if we increase the study posts in higher education, the diversifying is going to even increase, so we need to be ready for that, and that's something that the universities in particular need to be supported through, with resources to meet the needs of the new students.
Agreed. In a way, you said it all, both of you. But there's nothing much for me to say, but recognizing talent in all its forms is crucial for a small country. And I'm not sure that our ways of selecting people always goes along with that. There are people who are socially different from some other, but have this and that talent which is underlying there and we don't recognize it. In a way, we are now trying to develop ways to make interventions to both middle school and so on, so that we could boost up the talent discovery. And it doesn't mean that we only take the one or two, but at least so that the little kids and our future holders will notice that I might be needed. And I know it's a little thing, but done on a bigger scale to make it go through the whole educational system, so that there is an interventional system where people are contacted at schools, that you can make an effort to build a better future, and you have it in you. And I know that it's always, we talk about systems, but in a way I think it's also very small. It's about people. And without involving people, the system doesn't really work at all. So I think that it's really interesting and very significant to have systems which go to people.
Thank you. Do you want to comment?
Can I just add, because I think it was a very important point that you mentioned about having trials and kind of like develop policies so that we know what works and what does not. Because even when the Finnish education system was at its strongest in terms of having low differences between pupils from different socioeconomic backgrounds, we were never the biggest spenders, like money on education system. So of course we need to have sufficient funding, but we also actually need to know where to put the funding and what works and what does not. And as a minister, I mean, we probably have maybe researchers here also, but I think it's interesting in educational research, you very rarely have a comparison group.
Yep.
Because usually when you do a policy change, you just roll it out for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
And we have been trying to do this a bit more in Finland with the trials that we've had on preschool and also on the having free of charge early educational education and care for 5-year-olds, that we could more in this direction, that the government can fund policy trials together with universities for us to get more data actually on what kind of policy tools do provide the wanted results and what do not.
And then we can do European cooperation.
Exactly, and this is where I would like to have the European cooperation, because this is really where we would need
so that everyone doesn't have to spend the same money
and do the same mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll still have one more question. Is it okay if we move forward?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
You are the boss.
Of course. So, if there's only one thing you could change to reach a more sustainable and equal education system, what would it be? Maya, you can start now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, system-wise, this is a tricky one, but it seems...
only one thing.
Only one thing. One thing.
Spontaneously.
Yeah. Whatever.
From Finnish perspective only, not looking at Europe, but it might work elsewhere also. But it's not one word. But you can write it all together in Finnish. So is that okay? Sure. So increasing cultural and linguistic understanding. That's it.
Thank you.
Mine is fairly easy. Free education for everyone throughout Europe. from primary school to higher education.
That's not one word.
It wasn't one word. It wasn't one thing.
All right.
free.
Free.
That's
good.
Lee.
This is very difficult. I would probably do like a massive additional investment in educational support from very early on. Actually, I change. I would introduce educational support system in early childhood education and care throughout Europe.
Thank you.
I mean, we ended it on a positive note. I'm sorry, guys. We have to start wrapping up. It's time for us now. But thank you all for your answers, and thank you all to the audience. And
Yeah, thank you from my side as well. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.